That night, no one expected a power outage. 50,000 people were shocked at the same time, but Elvis focused on only one thing: little Emma crying in the darkness. The decision he made at that moment would prove that technology was not more powerful than music. For 9-year-old Emma Thompson, this night represented the culmination of months of dreams and anticipation. Her love for Elvis Presley had begun 3 years earlier when she first heard "Can't Help Falling in Love" playing softly from her grandmother's old radio. From that magical moment, Elvis became more than just a singer to her. He became a symbol of joy, hope, and everything beautiful in the world. Emma lived with her single mother, Margaret, in a small apartment on the outskirts of Memphis. Money was always tight, but Margaret worked double shifts at the local diner to save enough for these precious concert tickets. She knew how much Elvis meant to her daughter, and seeing Emma's face light up whenever his music played made every sacrifice worthwhile. The little girl had spent weeks preparing for this night. She had carefully chosen her favorite yellow dress with tiny white flowers, the one her grandmother had sewn for her before she passed away. Emma believed that wearing something special would help Elvis notice her among the thousands of fans. She had practiced singing along to every song, memorizing not just the lyrics, but every inflection, every pause, every breath that made Elvis's voice so distinctive. On the morning of the concert, Emma woke up before dawn, too excited to sleep. She had dreamed about this day countless times, imagining herself in the audience, singing along, maybe even catching Elvis's attention. Her mother found her standing in front of the mirror, practicing her waves and smiles, preparing for the moment she was certain Elvis would look her way. Margaret watched her daughter's preparations with a mixture of joy and concern. She knew how much this meant to Emma, perhaps too much. The little girl had built this night up in her mind as something almost magical, and Margaret worried about potential disappointment. But seeing Emma's pure happiness, she decided to let her daughter dream. The concert venue was massive, far larger than anything Emma had ever experienced. As they approached the building, she could hear the distant rumble of thousands of excited voices from inside. Her heart raced with anticipation, and she gripped her mother's hand tightly, not from fear but from overwhelming excitement. Inside the arena, the atmosphere was electric. Fans of all ages filled every seat, their voices creating a constant buzz of anticipation. Emma had never seen so many people in one place, and for a moment, she felt small and insignificant in the vast crowd. But then the lights dimmed, and everything changed. When Elvis appeared on stage, the roar from the crowd was deafening. Emma had seen him on television and in photographs, but seeing him in person was entirely different. He seemed to glow under the stage lights, his white jumpsuit sparkling like stars. When he moved, the entire audience moved with him, as if connected by invisible strings. From her seat in the middle section, Emma could see Elvis clearly enough to make out his expressions, his gestures, the way he connected with the audience. She sang along to every song, her small voice lost in the sea of thousands, but her heart fully engaged with every note. This was everything she had dreamed it would be, and more. "Love Me Tender" came early in the set, and Emma felt tears of joy streaming down her cheeks as she listened to her favorite song performed live. Elvis's voice seemed to speak directly to her heart, just as it had that first day by her grandmother's radio. In that moment, surrounded by music and magic, Emma felt complete. The concert continued flawlessly through hit after hit. Hound Dog had everyone on their feet. Can't Help Falling in Love brought couples together throughout the arena. And Suspicious Minds showcased Elvis's incredible vocal range. Emma was in absolute heaven, living every moment she had imagined and more. It was during Don't Be Cruel, about halfway through the concert, when everything changed. Elvis was in the middle of the second verse, his voice soaring over the crowd, when suddenly, Without warning, every light in the arena went out. The music stopped abruptly as amplifiers fell silent, and 50,000 people were plunged into complete darkness. The silence lasted only seconds before confused murmurs began to ripple through the crowd. Then the murmurs grew louder, turning into concerned voices asking what had happened. Some people began calling out, others started using the flashlights on their phones, creating tiny dots of light scattered throughout the vast darkness. For Emma, the sudden darkness was terrifying. One moment she had been in her element, surrounded by music and light and joy, and the next she was in a black void where she couldn't even see her own hands. The little girl began to panic, her breathing becoming shallow and rapid. "Mom?" she called out, her voice small and frightened in the chaos around them. Margaret immediately pulled her daughter close, but even she was disoriented in the complete darkness. The crowd was getting more restless, and some people were starting to push as they tried to figure out what was happening. Emma began to cry, not the tears of joy she had shed earlier, but tears of fear and disappointment. Her perfect night was ruining. The magic was gone, replaced by darkness and confusion, and the frightening sound of thousands of people who didn't know what to do. "It's okay, sweetheart," Margaret whispered, holding Emma tightly. "The lights will come back on soon. They'll fix it." But she wasn't entirely certain herself. Power outages at venues this size were serious problems that could take hours to resolve. The arena staff was trying to maintain order, their voices echoing through portable megaphones as they assured everyone that they were working on the problem. But their words were getting lost in the noise of the crowd, and many people couldn't hear the announcements clearly. Emma's crying grew louder as her fear intensified. She had waited so long for this night, saved every penny, dreamed every dream, and now it was all falling apart. The darkness seemed to press in on her from all sides, and she felt smaller and more frightened than she ever had in her life. It was then, in the midst of the chaos and confusion, that a familiar voice cut through the darkness, not amplified, not enhanced by technology, but pure and clear and unmistakably Elvis. "Is everyone okay out there?" His voice called out from the stage, carrying across the silent crowd with surprising clarity. "I know it's dark, and I know you're scared, but we're all in this together." The arena fell silent as 50,000 people strained to hear their idol's voice in the darkness. Elvis continued, his words reaching every corner of the vast space through sheer vocal power and presence. "You know what?" Elvis called out, his voice warm and reassuring. "We don't need electricity to make music. Music comes from the heart, and hearts don't need power to work." Emma's crying slowed as she heard Elvis's voice. Even in the darkness, even without amplification, his voice carried the same magic that had captured her heart years ago. She wiped her tears and listened intently. "I'm going to sing for you," Elvis announced. "No microphones, no amplifiers, just me and you and the music we share, and I want all of you to sing with me." What happened next would be talked about for decades. In the complete darkness of the arena, Elvis Presley began to sing "Love Me Tender" a cappella, his voice carrying clearly across the silent crowd. It started as just his voice, pure and beautiful, filling the space where electronic sound had failed. But then, slowly, other voices began to join in. First a few people near the stage, then entire sections, until eventually all 50,000 people were singing together in the darkness. The sound was unlike anything any of them had ever experienced, raw, human, and incredibly moving. Emma's voice joined the chorus, trembling at first, but growing stronger with each word. She couldn't see Elvis, couldn't see anything, but she could feel his presence, could feel the connection between him and every person in that arena. This was music in its purest form, stripped of all technology and artifice. As the song continued, Elvis began to move closer to the edge of the stage. He couldn't see the crowd any better than they could see him, but he could hear individual voices, could sense where people were struggling. And that's when he heard something that made him stop. In the middle of the vast chorus of voices, he heard a small, frightened sob. It was coming from somewhere in the audience, and it tugged at his heart. Someone was still scared, still crying, and Elvis couldn't let that continue. "Hold on," he called out, his voice stopping the song mid-verse. "I hear someone who's still scared. Where are you, little one?" Emma gasped when she realized Elvis was talking to her. In the darkness, her crying must have been audible to him, must have reached him even among all those thousands of voices. "It's okay," Elvis's voice called out, gentler now, more intimate despite addressing the vast crowd. "Can you tell me where you are? I can't see you, but I can hear that you're frightened." Margaret encouraged Emma to respond. "Tell him where we are, sweetheart. He's trying to help you." With a shaky voice, Emma called out, "I'm here! In the middle section." Her small voice seemed impossibly tiny in the vast space, but somehow Elvis heard her.
"There you are," Elvis said, and Emma could hear the smile in his voice, even though she couldn't see it. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emma," she called back, her voice stronger now. "Emma," Elvis repeated, and hearing her name in his voice made her heart soar despite the darkness. "Emma, I want you to know something. This darkness doesn't change anything. The music is still here. I'm still here. And all these people are still here with you. You're not alone." Elvis paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was directed specifically toward her section of the arena. "Emma, this next song is just for you, and I want everyone else to be very quiet so Emma can hear it clearly." The arena fell completely silent, 50,000 people holding their breath in anticipation. Then Elvis began to sing "Can't Help Falling in Love," the song that had first introduced Emma to his music. But this version was different from any recording or live performance ever heard before.
Sung a cappella in complete darkness, with only the natural acoustics of the arena to carry it, the song became something transcendent. Elvis's voice seemed to float through the air, reaching every corner of the space, but somehow it felt as though he was singing directly to Emma alone. The little girl stopped crying entirely, mesmerized by the beauty of what she was hearing. This wasn't just a concert anymore. It was something magical. Something that could never be replicated or recorded. It was a moment that existed only in the darkness, only for the people who were there to experience it. As Elvis sang, Emma felt her fear melting away. The darkness that had seemed so threatening now felt intimate, cozy even. She was sharing this incredible moment with Elvis and 50,000 other people, all connected by nothing more than the power of the human voice and the universal language of music. Other audience members began to quietly cry, not from fear, but from the overwhelming beauty of what they were experiencing. Many would later say it was the most moving musical performance they had ever witnessed, more powerful than any amplified concert could ever be. When the song ended, the silence in the arena was profound. Then, gradually, applause began to build, not the explosive cheering typical of rock concerts, but a sustained, reverent appreciation for something truly special they had all shared. "Thank you, Emma," Elvis called out into the darkness. "Thank you for letting me sing for you, and thank you, everyone, for proving that music doesn't need electricity. It needs heart." The power came back on about 10 minutes later, flooding the arena with light and bringing the sound system back to life. The crowd cheered as Elvis reappeared on stage, grinning and shaking his head in amazement at what had just happened. "Well," he said into the microphone, his voice now amplified again, "that was something special, wasn't it?" The crowd erupted in agreement. "But you know what? I think that might have been the most beautiful music we've made all night." Elvis looked out toward the section where Emma was sitting, though he couldn't pick her out in the crowd. "Emma, if you're still out there, thank you for reminding me why I love music. And everyone else, thank you for showing me that the best concerts happen not just with your ears, but with your hearts." The rest of the concert continued with renewed energy. Elvis seemed more connected to his audience than ever, and the crowd responded with an enthusiasm that surprised even the veteran performers and crew. The power outage, which could have been a disaster, had instead created one of the most memorable nights in the venue's history. For Emma, the rest of the concert passed in a blur of joy and wonder, but it wasn't the lights or the sound system or even Elvis's amplified voice that she would remember most clearly. It was that perfect moment in the darkness when music proved its power to connect, to comfort, and to transform fear into beauty. After the concert, as Emma and her mother made their way out of the arena, they overheard countless conversations about the power outage, but nobody was complaining. Instead, people were marveling at what they had experienced, calling it magical, once in a lifetime, unforgettable. "Did you hear him sing 'Can't Help Falling in Love' in the dark?" one woman said to her friend. "I've never heard anything so beautiful in my life." "And the way everyone sang together during 'Love Me Tender,'" another person added. "It gave me chills. It was like we were all part of something bigger than ourselves." Emma listened to these conversations with a secret smile. She knew that Elvis had sung especially for her, that she had been part of creating that magical moment. The power outage that had seemed so scary had actually given her something more precious than any normal concert could have provided.
On the drive home, Emma was unusually quiet, processing everything that had happened. Finally, she spoke up from the back seat. "Mom," she said softly, "that was even better than I dreamed it would be." Margaret looked at her daughter in the rearview mirror, seeing a new maturity in her eyes. "Even with the power going out? Even though you were scared?" Emma nodded thoughtfully. "Especially because of that. When everything went dark, I learned that music doesn't come from machines. It comes from people. And Elvis showed me that even when you can't see anything, you can still feel everything." The impact of that night extended far beyond Emma's personal experience. News of Elvis's a cappella performance during the power outage spread quickly through the music community and media. Reporters called it a testament to his artistry and humanity, proof that great performers could connect with their audience regardless of technical circumstances. Music critics wrote about the purity of the performance, noting how the absence of amplification and effects had stripped the music down to its essential elements: voice, melody, and emotion. Some called it the most honest performance of Elvis's career, a moment when technology failed, but humanity triumphed. For the 50,000 people who were there that night, the concert became a defining moment. Many would later say that it changed their understanding of music, of performance, and of the power of shared human experience. They had witnessed something that could never be repeated, never be recorded, never be fully explained to those who weren't there. Emma kept the ticket stub from that concert for the rest of her life. As she grew older, she would often take it out and remember not just the fear she had felt in the darkness, but the incredible beauty that had emerged from it. The experience taught her that the most meaningful moments often come, not when everything goes according to plan, but when unexpected challenges reveal unexpected truths. Years later, when Emma had children of her own, she would tell them the story of the night the lights went out at the Elvis concert. She would explain how sometimes the most beautiful music comes not from the loudest speakers or the brightest lights, but from the human heart, reaching out to other human hearts in moments of need. The concert became legendary among Elvis fans and music lovers in general. Audio recordings existed of the amplified portions of the show, but the a cappella performance in the darkness lived only in the memories of those who were there. This made it even more precious, more meaningful, a shared secret among the thousand people who had experienced something extraordinary together. For Elvis himself, the incident reinforced his belief in the power of music to connect and heal. In later interviews, he would often refer to that night as one of his favorite performance memories, not because of any technical excellence, but because of the pure human connection it represented. "Music isn't about the equipment," he said in one interview. "It's about the heart." That night, when everything electronic failed, we discovered that the most important parts of music,
the parts that really matter, don't need electricity at all. Emma's story became part of the concert's legend. Though Elvis never learned her last name or saw her face clearly, he often spoke about the little girl whose cry in the darkness had prompted him to sing just for her. Her fear had become the catalyst for one of the most beautiful moments in live music history. As Emma grew up, she carried the lessons of that night with her. She learned to face darkness, both literal and metaphorical, with courage, remembering that even in the scariest moments, beauty and connection were possible. She learned that true strength often comes not from technology or external support, but from the human capacity to reach out to others in times of need. The power outage that night lasted only about 15 minutes, but its impact lasted a lifetime. It proved that music's greatest power lies not in volume or production value, but in its ability to touch hearts, build bridges, and transform fear into wonder. In the darkness of that arena, 50,000 people learned that the most important light comes not from electricity, but from the human spirit's refusal to be dimmed by circumstance.
Years later, when people asked Emma about meeting Elvis, she would smile and say that she never actually met him in the traditional sense. But in the darkness, when fear threatened to overwhelm her, his voice had reached across thousands of people to comfort her specifically. That connection, forged in darkness and sustained by nothing more than the power of music and human compassion, was more meaningful than any autograph or photograph could ever have been. The night the lights went out became more than just a concert. It became a testament to music's enduring power to heal, connect, and inspire, even in the darkest of moments. What would you have done if you were in Elvis's position that night? Share your thoughts in the comments below.